Man transmits ideas to the subconscious through his feelings. The subconscious transmits ideas from mind to mind through telepathy. Your unexpressed convictions of others are transmitted to them without their conscious knowledge or consent, and if subconsciously accepted by them will influence their behavior. This is the reason why whatever you believe is true for someone is what will reflect in their interactions with you. If you believe that a person is irritating, they will continue to be irritating to you. But if you believe a person is lovely and likable, or the person likes you, even though that said person is deemed to be unlikable and snobbed by most people, you'll find that his or her interactions when it comes to you will be different and will be more positive. The only ideas they subconsciously reject are your ideas of them which they could not wish to be true of anyone. Whatever they could wish for others can be believed of them, and by the law of belief which governs subjective reasoning, they are compelled to subjectively accept and therefore objectively express accordingly. That's why it is important to think and wish only of good things for others. The subjective mind is completely controlled by suggestion. Ideas are best suggested when the objective mind is partly subjective. That is when the objective senses are diminished or held in abeyance. Imagination and faith are the only faculties of the mind needed to create objective conditions. The faith required for the successful operation of the law of consciousness is a purely subjective faith, and is attainable upon the cessation of active opposition on the part of the objective mind of the operator. It depends on your ability to feel and accept as true what your objective senses deny. Neither the passivity of the subject nor his conscious agreement with your suggestion is necessary, for without his consent or knowledge he can be given a subjective order that he must objectively express. It is a fundamental law of consciousness that by telepathy we can have immediate communion with another. How does the law of thought transmission work? When you step away from the false beliefs taught through our mainstream conditioning and start viewing life through the lens of frequency and vibration, it's much easier to understand and navigate to your advantage. We are taught that our thoughts are private and have no impact on what we bring into our lives. However, viewing thoughts through the lens of frequency and vibration tells a very different story. Principle 1. Your physical distance from the person is irrelevant. Quantum entanglement. Neville states, a friend 1,000 miles away is rooted in your consciousness through your fixed ideas of him. This is the phenomenon Albert Einstein called spooky action at a distance. We know from quantum physics that entangled particles remain connected so that actions performed on one affect the other at speeds greater than 10,000 times the speed of light. And, as researchers state, possibly even instantaneously, even when separated by great distances. So while it's a common belief that our thoughts are our own private affair, known only to ourselves, research shows that this is not the case. There is a great deal of research in modern physics and various fields that provide evidence supporting the concept of non-locality. Though we do not yet understand all of the limitations and abilities of thought transmission, we know that it does not require a physical connection between two people. Many studies have shown that thoughts can be transmitted across vast distances, even between people who have never met. There are many results-oriented studies on this topic from the perspective of prayer and intention, which can be explored via the work of people such as Lynn McTaggart, Larry Dossey, and many others. Principle 2. Your thoughts will create a corresponding action unless it is not a match. Frequency and resonance. Neville states, it awakens in him a corresponding state which he must objectify. The subject will express the awakened state within him and remain unaware of the true cause of his action. The subject has no power to resist your controlled subjective ideas of him unless the state you affirm to be true of him is a state he is incapable of wishing to be true of another. In that case, it returns to you, the sender, and will realize itself in you. At their core, the thoughts we deeply believe and hold as true are just vibrational frequencies, and we can better understand what's going on here by looking at how frequencies interact. When two frequencies are the same, they resonate with and amplify one another. When two frequencies are not the same, there will be no resonance. For example, when you strike a tuning fork next to another tuning fork on the same frequency, the second tuning fork will begin to vibrate. When you strike a tuning fork next to a tuning fork on a different frequency, the second tuning fork will not vibrate. So in the case of the former friend, when you have those thoughts of them spreading gossip about you, keep Neville's statement in mind. The subject has no power to resist your controlled subjective ideas of him unless the state you affirm to be true of him is a state he is incapable of wishing to be true of another. So what this means is that if this is a frequency they are also on, this idea will resonate and produce itself within them. So without their conscious awareness, they begin spreading the gossip, never truly knowing where the impetus to do so came from. However, if they do not hold that same frequency again, as Neville stated, unless the state you affirm to be true of him is a state he is incapable of wishing to be true of another, then there will be no frequency match and no resonance within them. So they will not absorb your negative ideas or speak ill of you, and then the power of your thought will have no effect on them and will only serve to bolster your own disempowering frequency. This is a simple but compelling concept. Your deep-seated thoughts are just vibrational frequencies that will attract the correlated experiences into your life whether or not you choose to be intentional with them. The exciting part about this is that when you choose to become intentional with your thoughts, you can attract supportive, uplifting relationships into your life simply by creating and maintaining your own frequencies. We've seen how thoughts and frequencies can be transmitted to other people, affecting their behavior. Now it's time for you to put this information into practice. What are some of the thoughts that you want to transmit? How can you change your own frequency so that you attract positive outcomes? Try out these techniques and let me know how they work for you. Remember, when we all send out good vibes, the world becomes a much better place for everyone in it. How to do it is per Neville. To establish rapport, you call the subject mentally. Focus your attention on him and mentally shout his name just as you would attract the attention of anyone. Imagine that he answered, and mentally hear his voice. Represent him to yourself inwardly in the state you want him to obtain. Then imagine that he is telling you in the tones of ordinary conversation what you want to hear. Mentally answer him. Tell him of your joy in witnessing his good fortune. Having mentally heard with all the distinctness of reality that which you wanted to hear and have thrilled to the news heard, return to objective consciousness. Your subjective conversation must awaken what it affirmed. I think this applies both to SP situations, congratulatory scenes, and to those wishing good fortune and health to other people.